Hello, I'm Senior Programmer Jen Wilson, and welcome to this Film Independent Presents Q&A for the film The Tale of Silyan by director Tamara Kotevska. Special thanks to National Geographic Doc Films for helping us screen this film for our members, and thanks to our lead sponsor, Golden Globe Foundation, our media sponsor, KCRW, and our virtual screenings partner, Vision Media. And now please join me in welcoming director and producer Tamara Kotevska and cinematographer producer Jean Dakar. Hello.
Hi.
Um, do we just want to start, Tamara, by telling us how the film sort of came into being and when you started thinking about it?
Well, this idea about the storks has been in my mind for a while. But the idea to actually immerse into making documentary about it happened 3 years ago, when I discovered this topic about storks eating from a landfill and changing their migrational routes, because more and more storks in Macedonia remained during the winter, which was strange because they usually migrate to Africa. And the white storks are a national symbol to my country. They're a very significant animal. So I was really curious what's happening. And together with Jean, we immersed in this research journey to understand more about why storks start eating from landfills and what's affecting them and what was their natural habitats of feeding before.
So you had such incredible access to Nicola's family and to the Storks. Can you talk about how you decided to center the film on Nicola and his family?
Well, the storks brought us to this family, actually. We were following the storks for about 6 months, only the storks. We were discussing with this animal environmental organization in Macedonia that with stork biologists who helped us go into villages and discover locations where the storks are settled. And by going after the storks, we started getting close to the farmers, to the local farmers, because the storks were feeding on their lands. We were asking for permission to shoot on their land, and they were often getting in our shots with their families and their children. So I started noticing this pattern of how similar the stork families and the human families are in this region, the farming families. And just it really intrigued me as an author to make this comparison, because in every one of my films I'm really engaged and interested about this similarity between the species, especially animals and humans. So after we've followed a couple of families, eventually we decided to stick with this one family of humans and this one family of storks, and to immerse in their journey and see where it's gonna take us.
Um, how unusual is it for somebody in Macedonia to bring an animal like a stork into their own home to care for it? Is that something that people would normally do?
Well, it depends. If you're in this region of the country, which is the southeast region, it's it's like such a common thing. It happens a lot because one of the largest store populations in Europe is based here. So it really happens a lot. But in the rest of the country, it's like a science fiction. They wouldn't see this, they wouldn't believe this so much, because they just don't visit this almost abandoned areas of the country, which was another, like, almost felt like Indiana Jones adventure for us when we started with this, because we just started seeing this amazing world of humans and storks sitting in front of local stores, sharing meal with each other, which just didn't feel like an everyday view.
I have to say, my dad is a farmer too, and he when he was farming, he had a bunch of barn cats, a bunch of cats that were living in his barn, and so this he would take care of them and he would take them to the vet, and in the winter he had like a heated cat house for them in the barn. So it really reminded me of this man and his stork. And that was very just sort of heartwarming for me because we used to tease my dad about how much he loved these cats and take care of the cats. But it made me think about how much reverence the people seem to have in this area for the storks. Um, has it always been this way? Because there's that scene where he and his friend actually bury the stork who has died. They always historically had such reverence for the storks.
Yes, the Tale of Silyan is from the 17th century in Macedonia, and it's the most famous fable, almost to the level of Snow White for the Western world, if I can make a comparison. So the storks have since forever have this significance because it's a primarily agricultural country, and it highly dependent through the centuries solely on agriculture. And the storks were also one of the main parts of this agriculturing world, and they've been always there, always living in symbiosis with humans. And only recently it's happening that the primarily agricultural villages are getting completely cleared out because of the governmental policies and monopolization of food and of major food production. So it's sad to see how the entire economy of the country is crashing because the farmers are moving out, which are the main force in a way for this economy. And also with them they take the storks away from these places, from these lands. So for me it was fascinating to show that every social issue that we think only humans are affected by it, and only modern society and modern economy is affected by it, actually it affects also every other species out there because we are part of the chain of food.
For Jean, this film is so beautifully shot. Can you talk about how you captured the footage of not only the family but the all the footage that you captured of the storks and their nests and the stork babies and all the things? How did you capture all that?
Hmm. Yeah. Well, both Tamara and I, we're really visual storytellers, and we knew from the start that we didn't really want to do a documentary, which was too factual and informative, sort of interview based, but rather to really, immerse ourselves into our subjects, both human and avian. Um, and you know, this film was meant to be felt more, from the heart rather than to be only understood with the brain. So what was really important is just to, dissolve ourselves into the characters. So with the storks, what's really important, which is exactly the same as humans, is for them to familiarize themselves to us. What we did is we settled for over 2.5 years on specific stork nests that we have found throughout the country, thanks to the help of the environmental organization. They have provided us a map with stork nests. And we essentially did some kind of casting about the stork nests and determined on certain criteria which ones stood out the most. We stuck to a handful of them. Um, so storks are, for the ones that are still migrating, they tend to come back to the same nests year after year, which is were great for our benefit because we got to work with the same storks essentially year after year. More importantly, the offspring, which happens every year, um, especially after the first year, they essentially grew up with our presence and with our technique and our tools. And especially that generation of storks, they were really familiar with us and our methods, and they let us come closer and closer, to the point where we were using even tools like drones to capture some of these storks, um, which in itself can be quite disruptive, maybe even intrusive. but especially the generation growing up with us, they weren't phased whatsoever by it, and they let us come closer, and more than any other storks. Um, with the humans as well. I mean, what was really important was to just break that barrier between us as filmmakers and them and their lives. And the more time we spent with each other, the more we became part of the family. And it just, everything became very natural and familiar. So to the point where we could come closer and closer, yeah, even physically, and being able to shoot on wider lenses, but being physically closer, which in itself creates a visual sense of intimacy, and thus we sort of created this sort of cinematic style that we did.
Can you talk about how long it took to shoot the film, and were you living like in proximity to the village and to the storks and the family?
It took us 3 years of simultaneous shooting and editing and research. Like it was a mixed process. It was a forever growing process in these 3 years. We were living when we were with the family. We were living with the family together with Jean, and it was very interesting to observe that they experienced this empty nest phenomenon of losing their own children. So they felt like we are taking their space of their children, and they really accepted us and embraced us to be part of the family. And I personally think it's the way to go in documentaries. I always do this as a director, to actually live with my subject so I can really immerse in their reality and understand it. And when we were shooting the storks, we had a trailer,
A
more
van.
like a little van, self-customed. So we were going out in the wilderness from one location to another, where we were pointed by the biologist where we can find the storks, and we were staying there for hours, for days, just until the moment when we capture one little moment with the storks. And for this in particular, I'm happy for working with John, because he's so devoted to this goal to stay for days until we actually managed to capture that one little moment.
A lot of the material that we ended up capturing, obviously, well, what you see in the film is just the tip of the iceberg. Um, to get to that point of understanding, their behavior and even individual characters, it took a lot of time just sitting and observing and researching, writing down everything in our journal as to what times they tend to fly away, what times competition would happen between other storks, etc., etc. And you know, the actual filming of it was maybe like 10% of what we were actually doing when we were filming the storks.
Tamara, this film seems very personal to you. Can you talk about your own personal connection with the film?
Well, I also come from a farming family background. My ancestors were living in these villages that are now fully abandoned. Um, the first story I ever heard was the Tale of Silyan, which really also shaped my life and the way I think. And in many ways, maybe it is the reason why I constantly kind of come back to Macedonia to make documentaries there, and just the path takes me there, no matter how far I fly and how many countries I will go with my films. So in that sense, I do think that we have a certain obligation as artists to use our art as a and our creativity as a tool to bring closer the issues to people, to make them less ignorant, and to start taking actions of the things that are happening around them, which we tend to be very ignorant about.
Can you talk about some things that were challenges for you while making the film?
Plenty, plenty of challenges.
Physical and emotional.
Yes, I mean, we are usually immersing ourselves in one of the heaviest physical conditions as documentary filmmakers. We really we love this actually in a certain way, that we can capture something that other humans just are not going there. They don't want to see this. For example, living on the landfill and spending so many hours,
Days.
days on this landfill, just me and Jean just being there, and and just being faced with this really heavy conditions, with the smell, with the everything around, and just seeing this devastating view of the storks for the sake of showing people something that they would never have the chance to see, because nobody will ever go on the landfill. Or spending so many days in this van just traveling around looking for the storks, building the patience. Then it was quite difficult many times to work with locals, because I mean, locals are so lovely. These farmers are so lovely, but also like they're really raw people. Like you can't really, easily communicate, and they get easily annoyed and frustrated, and they have work to do. So it's just to get to this point, to get these beautiful shots amidst their work, which, they're it's part of their life. They need to gather the crops. So for us, we need to work around it, how to capture this beautiful material while they're working. Another very big challenge was the funding of this film. Um, we kind of funded it for a year and a half just by ourselves, and many times it was just on the edge of giving up. And it's something to mention as a very important, because just to have one film exist, it's actually a miracle by itself, because it really puts a filmmaker to the limits of how much they're capable of financially survive, emotionally, getting away from your private life completely to immerse in this other world and experience. So it was quite a journey before we actually found our partners, and to eventually come to the point that Nat Geo picked up our film, which was like a dream come true for us, because we've been inspired, both me and Jean, from Nat Geo our entire life to make this kind of nature driven films and documentaries.
Can you talk about Nicola and his family? Has anything changed with their situation today as opposed to when you started making the film with Nicola?
Well, at the moment he's still living with his wife in the same house. They don't have so much land. They sold part of it. They have a little bit of land where they're self-sustainable at the moment. They're working themselves. The stork still lives with them. Silyan is still with them. They usually live about around 20 years or something like that, more or less. So they're part of the family now. Um, I can't say that something drastic changed about the farming conditions, but we are really hoping that with this film we will target two very important issues. Where one is the farming situation, where we're gonna raise the voice of the farmers and help them. Maybe like we are working on that to establish platforms where the modern cities can get products directly from these farmers, rather than all going through governmental institutions. And the second issue we want to address is actually making a stork sanctuary.
And wild birds.
Wild bird sanctuary, primarily also Stork, because for every bird is also a different law. And in this case, the animal organization that we collaborate with will help us to feed the storks, to take care of the herd storks, because at the moment we don't have a law in Macedonia that protects the herd storks. There's no institution where you can bring them, and it's illegal for humans to keep them in their house. So it's
Oh. Um, so yeah, I was gonna add, that brings up my question. What, if anything, do you think that audiences could do to help support the Macedonian farmers and the storks? Is there an organization they could donate to, or?
We are just now actually starting to open that kind of fundraising, because actually the film just got released like not even a month ago. So we are still working on that, and we will let the wider audience know via social media and other media when we eventually manage to put the platform to be ongoing.
So what overall do you hope that audience's takeaway from watching the film is?
Yeah, I think one of the things that's absolutely crucial is to raise the awareness about local farmers and the struggle of local farmers. This is not just in Macedonia, but everywhere in the world. In the US, there's the same struggle, maybe for different reasons, but in the end of the day, local farmers are struggling to the point where bigger corporations are essentially dominating. And this is something we must be aware of, because if the knowledge of farming, and especially traditional farming, starting to fade away, um, this is creating a lack of knowledge of how to live from the land. And um, the the food corporations and farming corporations, the huge ones, they are not necessarily, it's more of an industrial thing. And the traditional knowledge is essentially going to die out, and this is a big problem.
Well, thank you so much to the two of you for joining us for the Q&A today. Has The Tale of Silyan been released in the United States yet?
Not yet. It will be released on the 28th of November in cinemas, and a bit later on the National Geographic and Disney Plus platform.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much to the two of you. Good luck during this award season. I know that your movie is definitely in the awards discussion going on right now. So, thank you so much to the two of you. Take care.
Thank you,
Thank
Jen.
you.